This is the Scenario Radio Show, real talk with a playlist. Recognized Game is the name of today's show. We've got Marcus Jones, Jeff Easley, and James Etta Cleveland all in. We've been having a really good discussion. I want to get into this whole thing about the NCAA. It looks like there's going to be finally, because most people advocate for the idea that athletes should be getting paid. They're drawing in all of this money in college. The student athletes should be able to benefit from that sum, aside from the quote unquote benefit of education. I want to ask you all, based on your understanding of all of it, do you think it will have a positive or a negative impact? And if so, in what way? Jeff, I want to start with you, man. I know you cover quite a bit of college ball.
Here's the thing, like, it's great. I was actually in the barbershop earlier this week. We were talking about this, right? So the positive impact goes to, like, if you guys follow college basketball or high school prep basketball, there was a group of kids, like, they were called a Jelly Fam, right? They were YouTube sensations coming through, and exactly. That's exactly what they did. Jelly Fam. So they were YouTube sensations. Now, they didn't pan out for them professionally, really didn't pan out for them in college as well, right? But as much social media influence they had and as much clout, for lack of a better word, they had coming out of high school going to college, those kids left so much money on the table. Someone else was able to trademark their name. Someone else was able to use it. You know, we know the hand movements, all the finger rolls, all that, but that was their stuff. You know what I'm saying? So if you think about it, this happened 2-3, it's almost 4 years now.
4 years ago,
if this happened 4 years ago, those kids would be set with a name and image and likeness, or even the intellectual property they created. They should have been able to profit off of that. So that's, to me, that's the option you should look back on and say, these are the kids that should have benefited from that. They created a whole movement and lost out on it.
They almost kind of gave you like that old school and one vibe when those
exactly
mixtapes were coming through. That was like the thing. Like in college, you sit back and everybody, oh, we got the new and one mixtape. Like that's what those young men had, man. That's a great point.
So y'all, you feel that pretty much it's a positive for the most part. You don't see any negatives coming from it?
Oh, I can see some negatives. I can see the negatives already. The high school stuff is insane right now. Like you get kids 15, 16 years old, and you're moving them from school to school, giving them, they making sure they finish high school, air quotes, and putting them in high profile basketball games, just for the benefit of monetization. I mean, I get it. They but still, they're 15. They should be able to enjoy being 15. Like, you should be able to enjoy that. So I can see the negatives, but those negatives don't outweigh looking back on kids who aren't going to be pro, but create a movement and should be able to profit off of that.
Yeah. James Etta, what about you? What are your thoughts? I know you work closely with student athletes. All right.
Yes. So I teach classes about name, image, and likeness. And so let me say I think it's positive, but I want to be careful. There's a difference between revenue sharing, which is what a lot of where you really want them to get to, and the money that you generate from making third-party dollars based on your name, image, and likeness. Where I would like us to go is where athletes truly get a piece of the pie. They get a portion of the revenue. If the NCAA and others are making billions of dollars off the athlete, I want them to have a piece of that particular pie. But since we don't have revenue sharing yet, the name, image, and likeness dollars, if athletes understand truly how to view themselves as a business and conduct themselves that way, there's not an athlete in this country, or in my opinion, on the planet, that can't make some dollars, because every athlete has a platform. Not all of them are as large as others. Every athlete is a hometown hero. And if you understand how to monetize, you can actually create a lot of dollars, even if you're not a high profile athlete. Some of the most well-paid athletes, in my opinion, right now, Brigham Young University did a deal with a company called Bill Bars, and it's specifically for walk-ons. And those walk-ons get their tuition, room, and board paid. Most of them will never see, they'll never see the field. This is a football deal. And in exchange for, they have to wear like a little decal, the company's decal on their practice helmets, not game, but practice. And then they have to do a few appearances. If I'm a walk on, hey baby, you ain't never free college. Holla at me. I'm gonna take that. I'll take that. So
those Mormons know their stuff, boy.
How to
yeah. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, okay, that's interesting and that's great. I love it. It's like Brigham Young. It's just I'm sorry, it's the first thing that comes to mind is like, oh, so Brigham Young got this. I wonder if how many because it's gonna be hard to get some brothers up in Utah. I'm sure they'll show up under those circumstances,
right.
But it's
the
hard to make.
Ones are the Samoan. They get some of the Samoans every now and then.
So okay, we were talking about the idea of revenue sharing versus the likeness, being able to take advantage of your likeness and use of all that. Then if a young athlete has to do that, then the onus is on them to figure out how to get the money. What do we have to do to get to a place where these people who are generating all this income off the backs of these athletes? How do we get to a place where they are sharing that revenue with the athletes that are making the money for
them? Northwestern tried to boycott years ago and they failed in this regard. So the only way I see them getting revenue sharing, like the sister is saying, is they stand up and say we're going to share the revenue or we're not playing. That's the only way. So this is, this I forgot this likeness deal or whatever. It's it's good. It's cool if you got a good agent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the offensive lineman, we just said, I live in Alabama. The starting quarterback already got $1 million.
Yeah.
What about the offensive lineman that's blocking for him? You get what I'm saying? So to answer your question, to get to that revenue sharing, it's going to be a boycott. That's the only way. It's kind of hard to get revenue sharing when the coach is making $8 million.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. He can leave that job and go somewhere else and get another $8 million back to back, and doesn't have to wait a year. Doesn't have to sit down. They can just up and go wherever they want to. Yeah, it's true.
James Etta, you were saying something?
Well, not necessarily. I was saying not necessarily, because the legislative culture has changed finally. If you now the Alston decision doesn't speak to revenue generation, but the decision, the way that the Supreme Court justices wrote it, for the first time, the NCAA is being told your business model is wrong. You cannot say that college football exists because these athletes don't get paid. So that's a big deal, because just a couple of weeks afterwards, there's a judge in Pennsylvania who agreed to hear a case where male and female athletes are suing 25 leagues, and they're suing for the right to be called employees. There's also something in Congress right now called so like this. For the first time in my lifetime, the legislative environment is changing, and people are beginning to realize schools are making a lot of money, businesses are making a lot of money, and athletes really are employees. They work. And so I anticipate we're going to see something in regards to revenue sharing in the next couple of years. And that is going to mean that for our community, especially, we're going to need to have a lot of financial literacy.
Marcus?
Correction. The black congregation knew our brothers and sisters were employees. You just had to express that to the white folks that making all the millions.
That's a real good point.
We know, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. When our brothers and sisters on the field, we knew they were employees. It's just the white folks not trying to share the money. Kind of like what happened 400, 500 years ago. But we won't. That's another show.
Okay, so James Etta was saying that that there's a legislative opportunity probably down the pike for this type of thing, and Marcus, you're saying that it's going to probably take some boycotting and everything. But the question is, not the athletes, but do we as sports viewers, sports fans, and the community of a lot of these young black athletes, do we have the stomach for a boycott? Because that's really what it's going to come down to. Because it's one thing for us to always tell those kids to put themselves on the line for it, but do we have the stomach for that?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. If we had that stomach, we wouldn't have watched during. They didn't want to play. There were athletes who didn't want to play during the bubble. If we had that stomach, we wouldn't have watched NBA basketball during the bubble. If that's the case, we wouldn't care what contracts people signed in the NBA, why this person makes this amount of money, or we shouldn't. Or when Naomi Osaka announces she's not playing because of mental health, you hear people say, "Oh, she makes too much money to say something like that." No, we don't have the stomach for that. We want these. We treat these people just as bad as the ownership does and the league owners do, because we expect them to entertain us no matter what.
I disagree, but go ahead.
I think as a whole, I feel what you said. Yeah. As a whole, I don't think we do. I think individually, we know that that's what it's going to take.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We get it, but I think as a whole, everybody ain't gonna do it. Everybody, I don't think everybody.
I mean,
but we don't even call. Like we won't even make phone calls. Like let's not even talk about boycotting. If you go look the past 40 years, Congress. We always hear from the NCAA and we hear from legislators, parents, fans, especially parents. Parents, if you got a kid that plays, come on now. We don't show up and we don't call. Before you even boycott, if you won't pick up the phone and freaking call, send a text message, write a funky email, you're not going to boycott anything. They're not going to, you don't even have to take it to the boycott first. Please pick up the phone and call your local legislator. Write a letter to the chancellor at UT or TSU or Vandy. Do that before you try to turn off football. They won't even do that. If we won't write letters, we're not finna turn off the game.
Wow.
Well, old man told me that the other persuasion only knows two things. It's to hit them in the pockets or hit them when it hurts. So we can be legislative and we shall overcome and all that. But if you hit them in their pockets hard and fast, they'll listen. That's the deal.
I totally agree. But I'm saying that we won't hit them in the pockets because we won't even do the little stuff. If you're not going to do the stuff that takes no effort, how are you going to say I'm going to turn off the TV for the year that it's going to take, or maybe the 2 years that it's going to take to really impact somebody's bottom line? Well, actually, with football, 6 months. That's all you need. 6 months.
All I'm going to tell you is Missouri football team a couple years ago boycotted and got their coach out of there. So,
they did. They did.
Us boycotting hurts them, though. If we don't watch, the more and more we don't watch, it hurts the league too. And that's we want them to get revenue share, right? We want them to get opportunities, right? So if we're not watching, we're hurting them in the long run. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get it. The whole hit the pockets thing, I'm with that 100%. You're absolutely right, sir. I totally dig that. But what I'm saying is there is other ways we can hit their pockets instead of not tuning out. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm not disagreeing with the sister. We can do those little steps and all that, but
you're saying the most effective way.
The most effective, you know what I mean? You could tickle somebody or you can hit them in the nose. Which one you
I don't want to tickle nobody, man.
All right.
That's rough right there.
We're not doing either.
Well, and I think that's really the point that James Zeta Cleveland is making, is that we aren't tickling or hitting in the nose. We're not even doing anything in between. We're simply saying that there is a problem. Yeah. The problem should be fixed, and that those people should fix the problem. And the thing is that, and that's kind of what I was talking about in the earlier segment when I was talking about the climate that produces the athlete. When we have such high expectations for the athlete to be politically engaged and informed and financially responsible, coming from societies, and I'm not just talking about Black society, I'm just talking about in general, that don't want to be politically engaged, don't want to be financially responsible. We don't want to be any of those things. And it's like, so we can't expect them to come and want to be all of those things once they finally have gotten to that particular place. This is the Scenario Radio Show. Real talk with a playlist.
That's the scenario.